My name is Maya Thompson, and I thought I was walking into nothing more than a simple family celebration, an 85th birthday party for my grandmother, Rose. The kind of gathering filled with laughter, balloons, and cake. But the truth? What happened inside that house was nothing like the memories I carried from childhood. It wasn't a celebration at all. It was a carefully staged trap, one that nearly cost my grandmother her freedom and exposed secrets my own family hoped would stay hidden forever. So tonight, I want to tell you my story. A story about love, betrayal, and the moment I realized that sometimes the people smiling at the table are the very ones planning to take everything from you. I was still holding Grandma Rose's hand when Jake leaned in so close I could feel his breath on my ear. His voice was calm, too calm. Get your bag. We're leaving. Act like nothing's wrong. At first, I thought he was teasing. This was supposed to be a celebration, a bright Sunday afternoon full of laughter and balloons, not the start of a nightmare. But then I caught his eyes. In 7 years of marriage, I had never seen that look on his face. Fear. Not the kind you play up in front of a horror movie, not the flinch when a car backfires. This was cold, sharp, animal fear, the kind that grips your body before your mind can process the threat. I mouthed silently, "What?" But Jake only shook his head the tiniest bit and gave me a smile so thin it looked painted on. Then, as if by accident, his fingers brushed against mine, our secret signal. A cue we used at parties when we wanted to slip away from boring small talk. Only this time, the stakes felt very different. Around us, the party raged on. Sierra, my older sister, was on the patio with a microphone, her voice chirpy and over-rehearsed. "None of this would be possible without Dad's planning," she gushed, earning laughter and applause. Guests clapped along to the music piping through a portable speaker. Balloons bobbed overhead, and Grandma Rose, wrapped in her beloved pale blue shawl, sat smiling in her chair like a quiet queen receiving her court. It should have been a perfect moment. I wanted to believe it was, but Jake's words drilled into me. Act like nothing's wrong. I forced my face into a smile, bent close to Grandma, and whispered, "Bathroom." She nodded sweetly, still clapping at Sierra's theatrics. Jake and I slipped through the crowd, nodding at relatives who teased us with jokes like, "Off to sneak some wine, huh?" Jake laughed back, "You know us." His performance was flawless, but I felt his grip tighten on my wrist the second the sliding glass door shut behind us. Inside the house, the noise dulled. For a moment, it was just us, the faint tick of a clock on the wall, the faint smell of lemon polish. "Jake, what's going on?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're scaring me." "Just trust me," he said. His voice was low, clipped, every word measured. "I'll explain in the car." My pulse quickened. He pressed my purse into my hands, scanned the hallway with darting eyes, then led me toward the front door. The sun outside was still warm, children's laughter carrying across the lawn. Everything looked perfectly normal. Yet the air itself felt wrong, like a stage set hiding dangerous machinery just out of sight. When Jake unlocked the car, the sharp beep echoed like a warning shot. I slid into the passenger seat. He got behind the wheel, started the engine, then immediately locked every door with a loud click. That sound settled in my chest like a weight. Jake's hands rested on the wheel, but his eyes were fixed on the rearview mirror. He didn't drive. He didn't speak. And then he turned to me, his face pale, his jaw clenched. Something's very, very wrong. My mouth went dry. I swallowed hard. Jake, it's just a birthday party. What are you talking about? He reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, clutching it tightly but not showing me the screen. I'll explain in a minute. For now, you need to trust me. Don't panic. Sit tight. I glanced back at the house through the window. Sierra was standing alone by the back door. She wasn't laughing anymore. She wasn't even waving goodbye. She was just watching us. Her smile was gone. Her eyes locked on the car like she knew we weren't supposed to leave. And in that instant, I knew Jake wasn't being paranoid. He wasn't overreacting. Something was deeply, dangerously wrong. This wasn't just a birthday party. It was the beginning of something else entirely. It hadn't started at the party. It began weeks earlier, with a phone call I almost didn't answer. I was folding laundry on a quiet Sunday afternoon when my phone buzzed across the counter. The screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in months. Dad. My thumb hovered, hesitation heavy in my chest. Our conversations were never warm. They weren't explosive either, just draining. Each call left me feeling smaller, like I was some misplaced piece that never quite fit in the family puzzle. But curiosity won. I slid my finger across the screen. Hi, Dad. Maya, he said, his voice unusually cheerful. How are you, sweetheart? That word, sweetheart, hit me like a false note. My father rarely wasted sweetness unless he wanted something. I'm fine, I said carefully. What's going on? He chuckled softly. I wanted to talk to you about something important. Your grandmother's birthday is coming up. 85 years old. Can you believe it? I could. Grandma Rose was sharper, wittier, and kinder than most people half her age. She'd practically raised me when Dad and Mom were too busy tearing each other apart. Still, I stayed silent, waiting for the catch. We're planning a surprise party, he continued. Big gathering, decorations, cake, the works. Your sister's helping organize it. We thought it would mean the world if you came. That made me freeze. Sierra and I hadn't been close since we were teenagers. She had always seen life as a contest, and I was her favorite rival. Even as adults, she carried that same brittle energy. Every achievement I had was somehow a threat to hers. Still, it was Grandma Rose, the woman who slipped cookies into my backpack when Dad said no, who told me stories at bedtime even when she was bone-tired from work, who looked at me like I was enough when nobody else did. She deserved to be celebrated. Of course, I heard myself say, surprising even me. I'll be there. Wonderful, Dad said. It'll mean the world to her. We hung up after he rattled off the details. Date, time, and, most unsettling of all, the location, the old family home. I hadn't stepped foot there in nearly 10 years. The house of my childhood, frozen in memories I'd tried hard to box away. My stomach twisted at the thought, but I told myself it didn't matter. It was for Grandma. That evening, I told Jake. He listened quietly, his brow furrowed. "Your dad invited you?" he asked, suspicion dripping from his tone. "Yes," I said, forcing a light laugh. "I know it's strange, but I can't miss Grandma's 85th. She practically raised me." Jake leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "And Sierra's involved too?" "Yeah," I said cautiously. "Why?" He didn't answer right away, just exhaled slowly. "It feels sudden, like they're trying too hard to make it sound perfect." I wanted to dismiss his concerns, but a part of me agreed. My father and Sierra had never been the warm family dinner type. Still, people change, don't they? Maybe, after all these years, they wanted to patch things up. Maybe this was their version of extending an olive branch. Jake finally nodded, though his eyes stayed clouded. "All right, but I'm coming with you." Of course he was. That's who Jake was. Protective, meticulous, always one step ahead. A week before the trip, he checked the car tires, the GPS, even the phone chargers. He treated it like a mission instead of a road trip. I teased him for it, but inside, I was grateful. The drive itself should have been simple. 6 hours, plenty of snacks, music on low, the kind of trip where memories sneak back into conversations. I told him about lemonade on the porch with Grandma, about blanket forts in the living room, about the smell of her lavender soap when she hugged me. We laughed at the good parts. We stayed quiet about the bad, the fights, the cold silences, the way Sierra rolled her eyes whenever I dared to dream aloud. By the time the old house came into view, dusk was painting the sky in gold. My breath caught in my throat. The shutters were the same. The porch still sagged slightly at the corner. The welcome mat looked familiar, but wrong, like a prop. Everything was perfect, too perfect, as if someone had scrubbed away the lived-in mess of real family life. The lawn was trimmed like a magazine spread. Balloons swayed at every post. A glossy banner stretched above the garage. Happy 85th, Rose. Dad stood on the porch, smiling too wide, arms flung open. There she is, my girl. Sierra was at his side, clipboard in hand, air kissing me on the cheek. "We're so glad you made it, Maya." Their enthusiasm felt rehearsed, like lines in a play. Jake stood tall beside me, his hand tightening around mine. He didn't need to say a word. I felt it too, the invisible shift in the air. From that moment on, I knew this wasn't just a birthday party. Something else was waiting behind those freshly painted walls. Crossing the threshold of that house felt like stepping into a photograph. Familiar shapes, familiar walls, but eerily drained of warmth. I paused just inside the doorway, scanning the living room. It looked almost identical to the one I'd grown up in, yet something about it didn't breathe. The rug where I used to sprawl with crayons had been replaced with something cleaner, sharper, as if chosen from a catalog. The walls were freshly painted, their faint chemical smell cutting through the scent of frosting and perfume. Every detail screamed presentation, not home. Jake noticed it too. I caught the way his eyes flicked to corners, to shadows, to places guests weren't supposed to look. His fingers tapped lightly against his thigh. A nervous tick I'd learned meant his instincts were on alert. "Looks nice," I murmured, forcing my voice to sound casual. "It looks staged," Jake replied under his breath. I tried to shake off the chill curling in my gut, but then I saw her, Grandma Rose, sitting in her favorite armchair near the window. For a heartbeat, relief washed over me. She was here. She was safe. But as I walked closer, that comfort evaporated. "Hi, Grandma," I whispered, kneeling beside her. She smiled faintly, her hand reaching for mine, but her eyes weren't the same. They were foggy, as though coated with a thin film. Her cheeks were paler, her frame thinner. She looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in weeks. "Maya," she said softly, her voice cracked like old parchment. "You came?" "Of course I did," I whispered, squeezing her hand. Her grip was weak, too weak. Jake joined me, laying a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Hi, Grandma?" She blinked up at him, her lips twitching into another faint smile. "Oh, Jack." My breath caught. She had never once forgotten his name. Jake's smile didn't waver, but I felt the tension radiating off him. Before I could say anything, Sierra swooped in like a hawk guarding her prey. "She's been a little sleepy lately," she said quickly, her tone clipped. "Doctor says it's just age." Her dismissal landed too easily, like a rehearsed excuse. My eyes lingered on Grandma's face, her heavy eyelids fluttering as though she was fighting to stay awake. Something wasn't right. I stood, scanning the room again. Most of the guests were vaguely familiar, distant cousins, old neighbors, people from my childhood who had faded into the background. But scattered among them were strangers. Men in pressed shirts and jackets stood in corners, their hands empty, their eyes restless. They weren't laughing. They weren't eating. They weren't mingling. They were just there, watching. "Who are those guys?" I whispered to Jake. He followed my gaze. His reply was quiet, tight. I was wondering the same thing. They haven't touched a bite. Before I could question further, Dad appeared beside us, grinning too wide, holding out 2 glasses of punch. "You two enjoying yourselves?" Jake took a glass but didn't drink. "Everything looks very polished," he said carefully. Dad chuckled, patting his shoulder. "Had to make it special. It's not every day your mother turns 85. I forced a smile, but my eyes stayed glued to Grandma. Her head lolled slightly, her breath uneven. This wasn't fatigue. It was something deeper, heavier. Then Sierra's voice rang out, high and bright. "All right, everyone! Group photos outside. Let's catch that golden light." Guests began to shuffle toward the yard. Dad ushered them like a proud host, smiling like he'd won something. Jake leaned close to me. "I'm going to check something near the driveway," he whispered. "Check what?" I asked, my heart hitching. His eyes hardened. "I'll explain later." I wanted to grab his hand and hold him there, but I nodded. "Be careful." He slipped away with practiced ease, blending into the movement of guests. I stayed behind with Grandma, brushing a strand of thinning hair from her forehead. She stirred faintly, eyes half closed. The laughter outside grew louder, but the silence inside pressed down like a weight. I glanced around again. Balloons, cake, decorations, painted smiles, and the thought slammed into me. This is a setup. Every perfect detail, every forced grin, every stranger in the room. It wasn't celebration. It was control. When Jake returned 10 minutes later, his expression confirmed my worst fear. His jaw was clenched, his eyes sharper than I'd ever seen them. Whatever he'd found, it wasn't good. "Can we talk?" he said quietly, his voice clipped. "Hallway. Now." And in that moment, I knew the party was only a mask, and something far darker was moving underneath. The hallway felt like a different world, quieter, cooler, away from the noise of forced laughter drifting in from the backyard. Jake's eyes darted over my shoulder before he spoke, his voice low and urgent. "I saw wires under the porch," he said. "Not power lines. Thin, hidden, like someone tried to bury them out of sight." My brows furrowed. "Wires? For what? Audio? Maybe video." His jaw tightened. "One of them runs right into the living room wall." I felt my stomach twist. "Recording? But why?" He shook his head. "That's not all. There are men by the back fence, just standing, watching, not guests. No food, no drinks, like they're waiting for something." The words sank like stones in my chest. "Security?" I whispered. "No uniforms. No badges. I heard one of them mention timing the drop. That's not party talk." My pulse quickened. The cheerful noise from the yard now sounded hollow, like background music masking something dangerous. Jake's eyes flicked toward the bathroom door nearby. I checked the medicine cabinet downstairs. Empty. I froze. Empty? But Grandma, she takes her heart meds. Her sleep pills. Every day. "Not anymore," Jake said grimly. "Unless they're hidden somewhere else." I pressed my back to the wall, the air thick in my lungs. My grandmother's foggy eyes, her weak grip, her misremembering Jake's name. It all crashed together like puzzle pieces snapping into place. "She's not herself," I whispered. "She's being drugged." Jake nodded. Sedated. Just enough to keep her awake for the party, too weak to resist. Footsteps clicked against the tile. Sierra's bright voice floated down the hall. "There you two are. We're about to do cake and gifts. Don't miss it." Jake smiled politely. "We'll be right there." She vanished around the corner, and the mask on his face slipped. He leaned close, whispering, "I think your dad and sister are planning something with Grandma's estate. Maybe trying to prove she's mentally unfit." My head spun. "But why now?" "Because everything shifts when she turns 85, he murmured. "Trusts, wills. Sometimes there are clauses that trigger at milestone birthdays. They might be trying to take control before she can fight back." The words made my knees weak. "We can't just accuse them without proof." "I'm working on it." His eyes flashed. "I took photos. But we need more time. Until then, act normal. Act normal." The same words he'd whispered to me minutes earlier. Only now, they carried a new weight, pressing down on my chest like stone. We returned to the living room. Sierra was lighting candles on a towering cake, her smile stretched too wide. Dad stood beside her, hand firm on her shoulder, his grin sharp as glass. Around them, the guests clapped and cheered, their voices wobbling with forced joy. I glanced at Grandma. Her head lolled, her eyes half closed, her lips moving weakly as though she couldn't keep up with the chorus of "Happy Birthday." Jake leaned in, his breath steady against my ear. "After cake, we leave." I nodded without thinking, my gaze fixed on Grandma. She looked so small in that chair, a queen stripped of her crown. The song ended, the candles flickered out, and for a fleeting second, I wished it could all be real, a simple party for a woman we all loved. But the truth was sitting in plain sight. This wasn't love. This was a performance. The cake was barely cut when Jake touched my arm, his eyes hard with decision. I understood immediately. It was time. We moved calmly through the side hallway, the hum of conversation fading behind us. Each step felt like walking a tightrope above a chasm. When Dad passed us, Jake clapped him on the shoulder with a smile. "Great cake." "Thanks for coming, son," Dad replied warmly. That word, son, soured in my ears like acid. Outside, the sun was dipping low, painting the air in orange. The quiet felt unnatural, like the house itself was holding its breath. We reached the car. Jake unlocked it quickly. "Get in." I slid into the passenger seat, my pulse hammering. Jake followed, locking the doors with one sharp click. He started the engine, pulling out slowly, as though we were just another couple leaving early. My lungs finally loosened as the driveway shrank behind us. Then Jake said something that turned my blood to ice. They had sedatives in the kitchen drawer. Not Grandma's. Stronger. Unmarked. I turned, horrified. "You think they've been drugging her?" His voice was steady, cold. "I think they've been keeping her just awake enough to appear present, but too foggy to object." I covered my mouth. "Oh my God." Jake's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. "There's more." One of the men had papers under his jacket. Medical forms. Signatures. Looked forged. My chest tightened. "What are you saying?" His gaze was unflinching. "If they declare her incompetent, they can take everything. The house. The accounts. Her freedom." I shook my head in disbelief. "We were just sitting there, eating cake." "Not anymore," he said, voice sharp as steel. He turned off the main road, his hands firm on the wheel. "Why are we turning?" I asked, panic rising. "I saw one of them on the phone when we left. I don't want them following us." The trees outside blurred as we sped down the back road. I clutched my phone. No signal. Jake reached into his jacket, pulling out a small flash drive. I got photos of everything. The wires, the pills, the papers. If we get this to the police, they'll have enough to act. I stared at him, stunned. "You did all that in under an hour?" His eyes stayed fixed on the road. "You know how I work?" I almost smiled, a fragile thing, but the weight of it all crushed me. Then my phone buzzed. A text. 5 words. From an unknown number. "Why did you leave?" My stomach dropped. Jake's jaw tightened as he glanced at the screen. "We're going straight to the station." And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about protecting Grandma. This was about surviving whatever game my family had started. The police station was 20 minutes away, but each mile felt like a year. My phone still burned in my hand, the message glaring up at me. Why did you leave? 5 words, cold and precise. No name, no context, just enough to rattle me. Jake's knuckles were white against the steering wheel. His eyes flicked to the mirrors every few seconds, scanning the empty road as though expecting headlights to appear behind us. His voice stayed calm, deliberate. Don't reply. Whoever sent it wants to throw you off balance. We stay ahead by not playing their game. I nodded, hugging my arms to my chest, trying to keep my breath steady. Jake, what if we're wrong? What if it's not what we think? What if... Then let the police tell us that, he said firmly. But we both know we're not wrong. I bit back tears, staring out at the blur of trees. My memories of Grandma, her soft laugh, her lavender soap, the way she used to hum while kneading dough, clashed with the image of her slumped in that chair, drugged and powerless. Jake handed me the flash drive. Open it. See for yourself. I slid it into the adapter and pulled up the files on my phone. Grainy photos filled the screen. Wires snaking under the porch. The unmarked pill bottle with powdery residue around the cap. A blurry shot of documents peeking out from a folder, one captured in sharp focus. My grandmother's name scrawled in handwriting that didn't even resemble hers. What is this? I whispered. A declaration of incapacity, Jake said. It's the first step to a conservatorship. If it goes through, they get control of her estate. Her life. My chest tightened, a hollow ache spreading through me. They wouldn't, not Dad, not Sierra. Jake didn't answer. He didn't need to. The evidence glowed on the screen, undeniable. Then he added, almost reluctantly, I saw a man near the basement door, dressed in scrubs, carrying a duffel bag. I whipped my head toward him. A nurse? But Grandma doesn't have home care. She's never mentioned it. Exactly, Jake said, his voice hard. They were counting on no one questioning it. My hands trembled. They were going to move her, while she was too sedated to resist. Jake's jaw clenched. That's why I got you out. We're the only ones who saw it. The flash of red and blue lights in the distance pulled me from my spiral. 2 county cruisers rolled into the gas station where we'd parked to wait. Relief and fear tangled in my chest. Jake stepped out, handing the flash drive to the officers with steady hands. He explained everything, his voice even, his tone professional, the kind of calm that demanded attention. I chimed in shakily, filling in the gaps, telling them about Grandma's state, the strangers, the pills. The officers didn't dismiss us. They didn't roll their eyes or shrug it off. They took notes. They made calls. And then one of them said the words that set my heart racing. We're heading to the property now. If you're up for it, come with us. Jake looked at me. I didn't want to go back. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide. But when I pictured Grandma slumped in that chair, I nodded. We're going. By the time we pulled into the driveway again, dusk had bled into night. The once lively house now sat in eerie silence. No music, no laughter, just shadows stretching across the porch. The officers moved first, one knocking firmly on the door, the other positioning himself by the steps. Jake and I stood close behind, my heart hammering so loud I thought everyone could hear it. The door opened. Sierra stood there, still in her party dress, her lipstick smudged, her smile brittle. "Officers," she said sweetly, "is something wrong?" "We're here on a report of suspected elder abuse and fraud," one officer said. "Is your mother home?" Sierra blinked. I think you have the wrong house." Jake stepped forward. His voice cut like steel. "No, they don't." Her eyes darted between us. "You called the police?" Before I could answer, the officer spoke again, his tone firm. "Ma'am, we need to come inside." Sierra hesitated. Then, with trembling hands, she stepped aside. "Of course. Please." Inside, the house looked the same, but darker, stripped of its shiny party veneer. And there she was. Grandma Rose, still slumped in her chair. The officer knelt beside her, gently tapping her arm. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, dazed but alive. "Yes." "Do you know where you are?" She blinked. "At home." "Do you know what day it is?" She paused, then whispered, "My birthday." Jake leaned close to me. "She's still under something." The other officer radioed for paramedics, then turned to Sierra. "Where's her medication?" "In her bathroom," she stammered. "Why?" "Show me." As they disappeared down the hall, Dad stormed in, his face flushed. "What's all this?" "Officers, I don't know what my daughter told you, but this is a misunderstanding." Jake pulled out his phone, holding up the photo of the forged declaration. "Then explain this." Dad's face drained of color. "Sir, we'll need you to come with us," the officer said. "You too, ma'am." Sierra's voice cracked. "We were just trying to protect her. She's getting worse. We were going to move her into care." A faint voice rose behind her. "No, I don't." Every head turned. Grandma was sitting up, her back straight, her eyes clearer than I'd seen all night. Her voice trembled, but rang with truth. "I'm not confused. I'm not crazy. And I didn't ask to be locked in a chair while you planned to take my house." Tears stung my eyes. "Grandma." She looked right at me, her gaze steady. "You came back for me." Jake knelt beside her, his hand over hers. "You're safe now. I promise." As the officers led my father and sister out into the night, silence filled the house, not the suffocating silence of secrets, but the kind that follows after chains are broken. Later, in the hospital, I sat by Grandma's bed as monitors beeped softly around us. She held my hand with surprising strength. "I thought I was alone," she whispered. "You never were," I said. "Not for a second." That night, as Jake and I sat quietly in the hotel room, no words left between us, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not relief, not even victory, but peace. The kind that comes when truth finally breaks through the dark. Because family isn't defined by who shares your blood. It's defined by who stands beside you when the lights go out, when the mask slips, when everything is at risk. And in that moment, I knew Grandma Rose still had her dignity. And I still had her. That night changed me forever. It taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who fights for you when you can't fight for yourself. Grandma Rose is safe now, and so am I. But the scars of that day will always remind me how thin the line between trust and deception can be. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it moved you, if it made you think about the true meaning of family, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel and join us for more stories that reveal the quiet truths hidden in everyday lives. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and as always, I wish you peace, health, and strength. Mota. What began as a joyful family gathering quickly unraveled into something far darker. Maya Thompson had every reason to believe her grandmother's 85th birthday would be a day of laughter, memories, and reunion. Balloons floated above the lawn, relatives clapped along to cheerful music, and Sierra, her sister, gave a glowing speech about their father's careful planning. But behind the perfect decorations and polished smiles, something sinister was brewing. When Jake, Maya's husband, leaned close and whispered, "Act like nothing's wrong," the celebration shifted into a silent battlefield. Maya had never seen fear etched so deeply into his face, and in that moment she realized the party wasn't about honoring Grandma Rose. It was about controlling her. Every detail of the evening suddenly felt staged. Strangers who didn't touch their food, wires hidden beneath the porch, a medicine cabinet stripped bare, and an unmarked bottle of pills tucked away in a kitchen drawer. Jake's discovery of forged documents confirmed their worst fears. The family was plotting to declare Grandma mentally unfit and seize her estate. Maya's childhood home, her grandmother's savings, her freedom, everything was at stake. The facade of love and celebration was nothing more than a carefully built trap. Their quiet escape from the house only escalated the danger. A chilling text, "Why did you leave?" proved that someone was watching. With evidence in hand, Jake and Maya rushed to the authorities, returning to the house not as guests, but with the police at their side. What followed was a confrontation that shattered the lies. Grandma Rose, weak but unbroken, found her voice in the chaos. "I'm not confused. I'm not crazy," she declared, exposing the deceit and reclaiming her dignity. In the end, it wasn't just about saving her estate, it was about saving her truth. This is more than a story of betrayal. It is a reminder that real family is measured not by blood, but by who protects you when you cannot protect yourself.